Who've you accidentally seen naked? The naked dude in the bedroom. I work as a handyman, and one day, I went to a house to install smoke detectors in the bedrooms. When I arrived, a woman let me in, and I told her I'd be entering all the bedrooms, just to make sure no one would be surprised by my presence. I asked if anyone else was home, and she assured me that it was just her. So, I went about my work. The first bedroom I entered? There was a naked dude, fast asleep, lying on his bed. I stood there for a second, not sure what to do, before backing out quietly. When I went back to the woman, I asked her why she told me no one else was home. She looked at me, confused for a moment, and then said, "Oh, I forgot about him." I guess that's something you don't usually forget. There's a whole naked person in your house. Ever accidentally walked in on someone in a way that left you questioning everything? From bosses on the toilet to awkward family encounters, we've all had those moments we wish we could forget. Share your most awkward accidental sighting, whether it's at the gym, at home, or even a random run-in with a celebrity. Let's see who's got the wildest story. Naked surprise at a hotel. Many years ago, when I was in the military, I was driving cross-country during my post-deployment leave. I stopped in Fort Worth for the night and went to check into a hotel. It was late, around 11 p.m., and the lady at the front desk gave me my key card and room number. Tired and ready for bed, I headed to my room. When I opened the door, I noticed the TV was on, but I figured housekeeping just forgot to turn it off. I walked around the corner to where the bed was, and there he was, an 80-year-old dude, butt naked, lying on top of the covers, snoring away. I froze, completely taken aback. I quickly went back to the front desk and told the lady, yeah, there's an old dude, completely naked, asleep in there." She gasped, apologized profusely, and gave me another room free of charge. So yeah, I got a free night at the hotel, but I'll never forget those old man balls. Worth it, I guess. Accidentally walking in on the shower. Back when I was younger, I worked as a house painter, and these kinds of things happened more often than you'd think. One time, a lady told me she'd be out of town, so she left me a key and said, "Just let yourself in." Simple, right? Well, not exactly. Turns out she wasn't out of town at all. I walked in, got my gear ready, and suddenly realized she was in the shower. I got out of there before seeing anything, and before she knew I was even there. But then, just 2 minutes later, while I was in the backyard unloading equipment, she casually decided to get dressed right in front of a full-length window with the curtains wide open. Definitely not what I wanted to see that day. Caught off guard by the girlfriend. Another time, a guy in an apartment let us in to paint without warning his girlfriend. She wasn't fully naked, but she definitely wasn't dressed for two random painters to wander in. She saw us, her eyes went wide, and she bolted for the back of the apartment. I guess she didn't expect company that early in the morning. Painting around the aftermath of a party. One of the strangest experiences? A fashion and culture writer from a well-known magazine had a party the night before I was supposed to come over to paint her bathroom. It might have been an orgy for all I know, because when I arrived at 8 a.m., the house was filled with half-naked people passed out all over the place, clearly hungover. She had completely forgotten I was coming, but when I offered to reschedule, she said it'd be weeks before I could come back. So, I ended up working while tiptoeing around the half-naked crowd, kept my head down, and just got the job done. It was one of the weirdest mornings I've ever had on the job. Naked neighbor surprise? One time, I was dropping off some food for a neighbor's BBQ. It was early, and as I walked up to their front door, the screen door was open, and so was the view into their living room. Right then, their daughter walked across the room completely naked, mid-complaint about something. I froze, turned right back around, and went home. I came back a few hours later with the food and pretended like nothing had happened. Roommates guessed walking in nude. In college, something similar happened. One of my roommates was sleeping with this girl, and one night at around 2 a.m., I was in the living room playing Ocarina of Time *. Out of nowhere, she walked out of his room, completely nude, and headed straight for the kitchen. I saw everything. We locked eyes for a second, and without saying a word, she turned around, went back into the room, and came out a few seconds later with a casual, "Oh, hey, punch bricks," like nothing ever happened. It was the most bizarre non-reaction I've ever seen. A hard reset and pretend it never happened. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is just hit the reset button and come back later, acting like nothing ever went down. Whether it's a random encounter or an accidental walk-in, sometimes you've just got to keep cool and move on. Unexpected backcountry encounter? I was out fishing in the backcountry, just trying to enjoy some peace and quiet, when I came across a group of people skinny dipping in the water. No big deal, right? Until one of the guys stood up, and I was faced with, without a doubt, the largest penis I have ever seen. It was impossible not to stare. I was straight up minding my own business, but that thing demanded attention. Skinny dipping surprise? One time, I went skinny dipping with an ex and a few of her friends, and let me tell you, this one dude had a cock so big even I couldn't stop staring. I'm not gay, but damn, it was like a whole salami swinging around in the water. My ex was equally dumbfounded. The guy was barely 5'8" inches and maybe 150 pounds soaking wet, but half his weight must have been what he was packing. Skinny dipping and staring. I had a similar experience. I was just hiking along and came around a bend to find 3 people hanging out in the water. 2 of them were standing shin deep, and the third guy was sitting. When he stood up, it seemed like his junk would never stop emerging from the water. I'm also straight, but there was no stopping my gaze. Then, the girl with him walked over, smiled at me, and started brushing water and sand off his junk like it was no big deal. After a bit of brushing, it started growing, and she just casually said, "Big, isn't it?" They both seemed really proud of it. I ended up chatting with them for a bit, and the guy left it all hanging out the entire time. Complimenting the package. When I got home, I told my girl about the whole scene, and she just laughed and said, "He probably took it as a compliment." Honestly, I feel like I would have stared too. Late night yoga, through the window. Once, while gaming late at night, probably around 1 a.m., I got up to grab something from the fridge and noticed the building next to ours had 2 women, completely naked, doing intense yoga workouts on mats by their window. They were stunning, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I called my wife over just to verify that I wasn't hallucinating. As soon as she came to look, the 2 women started doing jumping jacks. It felt weirdly invasive, so we didn't linger too long, but we both admired their commitment to late-night fitness routines. Naked surprises in theater. I worked in theater for several years, mostly low-budget shows in small venues where there weren't proper changing rooms. You get used to seeing people in various states of undress pretty quickly. Depending on the costume, some people had to ditch certain types of underwear because it would show through their outfit, like boxers under hose or bras with corsets. Most people were just comfortable with their bodies, and there was often a divider, but not everyone used it. Of course, some people, myself included, were more self-conscious, and that was always respected. Unexpected neighbor incident. One of the most random experiences I had was seeing my neighbor's daughter naked by accident. They were having a BBQ, and I was just dropping off some food early. I walked up to the screen door, which was open, and there she was, walking across the living room completely naked, complaining about something. I turned around immediately and came back a couple of hours later, pretending nothing happened. College roommate's girlfriend incident? Back in college, my roommate's girlfriend gave me quite the surprise. It was around 2 a.m., and I was playing Ocarina of Time in the living room. She came out of his room, completely naked, and walked through the living room like it was nothing. We made eye contact, she quickly turned around, went back to the room, and came out a minute later acting as if nothing had ever happened. She just said, "Oh hey," like we didn't just share the weirdest moment of my life. Skinny dipping encounter. I was out fishing in the backcountry when I came across some people skinny dipping. One guy stood up, and I swear it was the largest penis I had ever seen. I was shocked, to say the least. There was no looking away from that. It was like something out of a movie. The skinny dipping salami. I had a similar experience when I went skinny dipping with my ex and her friends. There was one dude whose cock was so big that even I couldn't stop staring. I'm straight, but it was like looking at an entire salami. My ex was equally shocked. This guy wasn't tall, barely 5'8", and probably weighed around 150 pounds, but he was carrying an absolute bat down there. Caught the neighbor's sister. When I was younger, I had the best accidental encounter of my life. My neighbor's sister. She wasn't my friend, but she lived next door, and one night I saw her completely naked. I'll be honest, it's a memory that stuck with me, even though I probably shouldn't have been looking. It was the kind of sight that stays with you for a long time. Peeking at the neighbor girl. When I was a teenager, the girl next door was only a year younger than me. One night, I happened to look out my bedroom window, and her bedroom window faced mine. Her light was on, and she had forgotten to pull her blinds down. She was walking around in just her underwear, no top. I'll admit, I looked every night for the next year, hoping for a repeat, but it never happened again. She was gorgeous, and that one glimpse stuck with me. Accidentally seeing my wife naked? I accidentally see my wife naked pretty much every time she's getting changed. It's like a ritual at this point. I'll stand there and just wait for the show to begin, and she always looks at me, rolling her eyes, annoyed but amused. It's like watching the sunset. It never gets old. Awkward but unspoken. My wife's sister. Back when I first started dating my wife, I used to go over to her house almost every day. She got comfortable enough to just tell me to come inside without texting her to let me in. What I didn't expect was the many times I walked in to see her sister completely naked, either passed out on the bed after a shower or sitting at her vanity doing makeup in the nude. We never made eye contact, never spoke about it, and she never even tried to cover up. It was like I was invisible. Caught half asleep, sister's friend. Once, one of my sister's friends came into my room to change into a bikini, not realizing I was half asleep under the covers. I didn't move, just lay there, and watched the whole thing unfold. It was one of those moments where you don't know whether to say something or just stay silent and hope she leaves quickly. Parents in the middle of the deed. When I was younger, I woke up in the middle of the night and unfortunately stumbled upon my parents in the act. They didn't hear me come in, and thankfully I didn't have my glasses on, so the whole thing was a blur. Still, the image haunts me to this day. Unexpected eye contact with my neighbor. My neighbor was cleaning her apartment, and at one point, we made the weirdest eye contact through the window. She was naked, and the intensity of that moment was something else. Neither of us said anything, but it was one of those awkward encounters that sticks with you. Surfer butts in California. Living in a coastal town known for surfing, it's almost impossible not to see surfers stripping off their wetsuits by their cars to change. Sometimes you're just driving by, minding your own business, and suddenly, bam, surfer butt. And let me tell you, those are some cute butts. Naked encounters at the gym and hotel. I've seen quite a few naked people over the years. A couple in a hotel once left their blinds wide open for all to see, and I've caught glimpses of my neighbor a few times. And of course, the gym is always an accidental hotspot for naked sightings in the locker room. It's like people just forget there's anyone else around. Backcountry surprise. This one time, I was backcountry camping in the middle of nowhere in British Columbia. I had volunteered to get water for the group, so I went off to a stream about 50 meters from camp. As I was filling up the jug, I suddenly heard giggling and female voices. Out of nowhere, 4 or 5 women, all completely naked, emerged from the bushes. They hadn't noticed me yet, so I just kept quietly filling the jug. That was until one of them shouted, "What if I peed standing up?" That was my cue to get out of there as quickly as possible. I was only 18 at the time, and let's just say, that was not the kind of camping experience I was expecting. Accidentally seeing my mother-in-law. I'll never forget the day I accidentally saw my mother-in-law naked. It wasn't anything I wanted to see, and to be honest, I don't think I've made eye contact with her since. Awkward doesn't even begin to describe it. Too many accidental sightings. It's almost starting to feel like these weren't all accidents. I've accidentally seen my sister, a coworker, my old boss, and even my current boss naked at some point. At this rate, I'm beginning to wonder if there's a hidden camera somewhere waiting to catch my reactions. Not so accidental accidents. Let me explain. My sister lives right next door. One day, I went over to borrow something, and she was in the bath. She heard a noise, came out to check, and freaked when she saw me, dropping her towel in the process. That was awkward, to say the least. Then there was my coworker. I was helping her paint her house, and she decided to take a bath. As she was walking to her bedroom, her towel also dropped, leaving her completely naked. Honestly, it was like something out of a dream. Beautiful, but definitely an accident, I think. Unexpected dick pics from my old boss. My old boss was showing me pictures on his phone, and out of nowhere, bam, a full-on dick pic, followed by a mirror nude. It was the most horrifying thing I've ever seen. Talk about a scarring moment. My current boss's phone backup gone wrong. As for my current boss, he made a backup of his phone on the office computer and never bothered to delete it. Now we show those accidental nudes to every new employee who joins the team. It's become a bit of an initiation joke. All together in one room? And just when you thought it couldn't get weirder, someone joked that all of these accidental sightings happened with everyone in the same room. If only it were that simple, life would be a lot less complicated. Accidentally walking in on my boss. Not completely naked, but still one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. I used to work at a small workshop that made roofs, and one day I went to use the bathroom. Turns out my boss forgot to lock the door. I opened it all the way, and there he was, sitting on the toilet, mid-shit. We made eye contact, and I think I broke the sound barrier with how fast I closed that door. We never spoke about it again, but I still cringe every time I remember it. The endless sight of old men in gym locker rooms. Old men in the gym. If you've been to a locker room, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For some reason, they just walk around like they own the place, and there's always one who insists on being completely naked for way longer than necessary. Oops, caught a classmate changing. Not fully naked, but I once accidentally saw a classmate while she was changing quickly behind stage during a school performance. I was sitting in an unfortunate position, and yeah, let's just say it was an unexpected sight. Walking in on my college buddy. In college, I walked into my room one day, only to find my buddy had decided to use it to hook up with someone. When I opened the door, she was lying on top of him, and he was thrusting vigorously, fully on display. The craziest part? They didn't stop. I just slowly backed out of the room, trying to erase the image from my mind. Catching my sister and her boyfriend. Walked in on my sister and her boyfriend once. They were, in the middle of it, and I noped out of there so fast. Was he hot? Well, I didn't exactly stick around to find out. Kim Kardashian's unwanted Twitter moment. I never meant to see Kim Kardashian naked, but she just randomly popped up on my Twitter feed one day. Gotta love the internet. Sometimes it gives you things you never asked for. And honestly, I hate it when Kim Kardashian poops on my Twitter. Accidentally saw my ex-mother-in-law topless. I once saw my ex-mother-in-law topless. Twice, actually. She was wandering around late at night while I was still awake. Not my taste, but hey, good for her. Bras suck anyway. Childhood neighbor's naked mom incident. Growing up, I used to wait for the school bus at my neighbor's house. One morning, their kids were teasing me, saying, "Boys go to Jupiter to get more stupider." I was pissed, so I stormed upstairs to tell their mom. What I didn't expect was to open the bathroom door and find her completely naked, everything jiggling as she jumped in surprise. Before I could even process what I was seeing, their dad came storming out of the bedroom, and the chase was on. Luckily, the school bus pulled up just in time, and I ran out of that house like my life depended on it. Later that day, my dad pulled me aside and said, "So, I heard you saw some boobies today. How I wish it had been my other neighbor's mom instead."